Welcome back to the Teams Insider podcast. This week we've got Rob Skyrme from BT. Rob is pre-sales on mobile at BT, and we go deep into Teams Phone Mobile, how it works and what the use cases are and what Rob's seeing in the field. Many thanks to Rob for joining, and also many thanks to Landis for being the supporter of this podcast. Really appreciate their support of Empowering Cloud. On with the show. Hi everybody, welcome back to the pod. Exciting one this week. It's a topic that I think is really important for the industry, but there hasn't been as much talk about it as I thought there might have been by now, and that is Teams Phone Mobile. I've talked about this before on the monthly update, but now we're going to get some real deep dive detail from someone who's actually running and deploying and offering the service. Robert, do you want to just introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background, please?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, hi, I'm Rob Skyrme. I'm part of the technical pre-sales team for mobile solutions at BT. And yeah, I've been pretty close to Teams Phone Mobile since we launched last year.
Awesome. I appreciate you jumping on the pod. I've talked to lots of the operators about this kind of on side chats, but it's great to have someone on the pod to kind of talk about what it is and where it fits. You've actually been involved in the Teams Phone Mobile journey with BT kind of more or less right from the start. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was sort of drafted in to help work out how we can sort of demonstrate this to customers and bring it to life a little bit, which always really helps those sort of conversations and really just helps people understand what it is and what it's going to do for them.
So why don't we start there? I'm sure a lot of people listening might have heard of it, but kind of from the top, what is Teams Phone Mobile? And it's not the app, right? That's the first thing that everybody, this naming is always a challenge, I feel.
That's right. Yeah, I think often there is a sort of a perception that, you know, we have the application. It rings when somebody calls me on Teams. Why do I need Teams Phone Mobile? And the truth is that it's much more than just the application. It's actually, at its heart, it's an integration of your mobile identity with Teams. So no longer are your Teams and mobile identities separated. So traditionally, you know, you've got a single mobile device, but you might have two telephone numbers, so one for mobile and one for Teams. You might have two voicemails.
What do we call the? I'm struggling as an industry. I think like what fixed line, SIP line, landline. It feels like we haven't got a common name for the because it's. I mean, they're also ethereal now, as in they follow you everywhere. But your landline, quote unquote, and your mobile. So in the UK, your 07 kind of number.
Yeah. I you know, and it's going to change. The terminology is going to change depending on who you're speaking to. And I think this is again a great example of why Teams Phone Mobile adds value. Because it becomes an identity. Then that the number is your identity. So it doesn't matter what that sort of platform is that sits behind it. That's you.
So what we're doing here is we're taking the mobile / cell number and we're surfacing that in Teams soft phone. So you're genuinely single number. So you're making and receiving calls from Teams on your desktop or laptop or app potentially, but that is the single number. And in this case, if BT is your service provider, you're given an 07 number. And if you make and receive calls on your mobile with native dialer, that's your 07 number. And if you make and receive calls natively on Teams, that's your 07 number as well.
That's right. And then any Teams endpoint that you're logged into becomes part of that identity. So you're presenting that number. We can come on to number presentation perhaps a little bit later, but yeah, at its heart, you're presenting that number, and that is the number that people are reaching you on. So they don't have to guess which is the best number to call you on. You know, if you're calling out even from your car, for example, you're presenting that identity, that number.
Awesome. And how's this work from a kind of integration architecture point of view? Because we've had fixed mobile conversions, quote unquote, for maybe a decade now in various like kind of either service provider types or gateways and forwarding and SIM-ring, but this is a bit different, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, it's a genuine integration at network level. So calls are handled by the mobile network, but passed into the Teams environment, that Teams phone system environment, and then passed back out. And the reason that's important, I guess there's a few benefits to that, but one is that it allows you to take advantage of all those Teams features for every single call. It's not just saying this is a mobile call, so you go back out to the mobile network. It's actually able to apply that sort of Teams wrap around it at the same time.
I think that's a key point you touched on there, which is how deep the integration is. So you're getting on-hook, off-hook presence. So if you use your mobile native dialer, Teams is going to know you're on a call. If you're doing voicemail or you're doing some kind of number management or call management in Teams, you're going to inherit all of those benefits as well.
As well as compliance, for example. So
compliance is a huge one, isn't it? Because if you have compliance recording on Teams, you inherit that on Teams Phone Mobile. So even if you're completely native dialer to native dialer, when we say native dialer on the mobile, I guess we should define that. So you're putting up, your classic dialer outside of an app. You make a mobile call to another mobile person. To you, nothing to do with Teams, but actually that's going to go through Teams, get recorded for call records, for compliance reasons, if you've got compliance recording, of course.
That's right. And I think the real key point here, and it's again another sort of key feature of Teams Phone Mobile, is that actually during that call you can migrate that call from the native dialer over to Teams and back again. And in doing so, that compliance-based recording can actually follow that call through each leg of that journey. So you're not getting a piece of the puzzle or having to sort of rebuild that puzzle back together after the fact. Again, that's a really strong point, and a key feature of Teams Phone Mobile really is the ability to. So you and I might be on a mobile call together. We decide that we want to sort of discuss the upcoming podcast, and you want to show me what the agenda looks like or something like that. We can actually just uplift that call without breaking the continuity to share that content, see some video. It's really powerful.
And in that scenario, we both have to be Teams Phone Mobile users, right? Because we're escalating from mobile to VoIP/IP, I guess.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
So really powerful, I guess, where people are rolling it out at some kind of scale inside their organization. It's like, well, we all kind of know we have mobiles and their teams, so we all know if we're talking to each other, we can escalate ad hoc, or I pick it up on the desktop, you pick it up on the mobile, you get to your desk, we can seamlessly bring it to Teams.
Yeah, and it's about that, taking advantage of something that's been a barrier before, and that is the fact that as mobile workers, there'll be people, tens of thousands of people across organizations that throughout their day have to move between different devices, different environments, different types of connectivity. And that's previously been a barrier, but actually now it's kind of inconsequential, because it doesn't matter what device you're on. It doesn't matter whether you're on the mobile network or Wi-Fi, where you are, you can just move that call around to the scenario that suits you best. So obviously I'm sat at my desk right now. If a call came through on my mobile with Teams Phone Mobile, I answer it on the laptop because I'm sat here and I've got my headset on.
Yeah.
If I'm out and about though, clearly the mobile is the best choice for that call, but it gives me that flexibility.
That's awesome. And this is only available from limited mobile operators at the moment. So if the mobile operator has to be working with Microsoft, they have to have integrated like an IT core level. It's not a feature of Teams. It's a combination of Teams plus the operator.
Yeah, that's right. And, I guess you could say rather unselfishly, we're really keen to see more and more carriers onboarded to just increase the global availability of Teams Phone Mobile. I was sort of lucky enough to be at Mobile World Congress with Microsoft this year, and clearly, there's an audience from around the world, and interest was significant, but availability is sort of less significant at the moment. So yeah, we'd love to see more people come on board, and recently there's been some great announcements about new carriers.
It feels like it's getting BT were first, weren't they? But we've got other carriers coming in the UK. We've got other carriers from around the world. I think, as you rightly say, as more operators have it, it becomes more of a conversation piece, and likely adoption will go up for everybody. Yeah,
absolutely. And you mentioned the UK there. We're absolutely welcoming our sort of colleagues from other UK carriers to also sort of spread the message, because Teams Phone Mobile is going to take off big time.
That's awesome. And what does that look like as a customer? Because it's business, not consumer, right? And I can't bring my own phone to this service. It has to be business contract. What does that look like?
You can bring your own phone, absolutely, but you can't bring your own SIM. So, for example, if you were an organization with a BYOD strategy, you would be paying for the business SIM effectively.
Oh, great. Yeah, great clarification.
So,
Sorry,
yeah.
you're right. SIM is a difference to phone if you wanted to manage your own devices out of band. That's a good point.
Yeah, but and again, that provides enormous flexibility. So especially with eSIM being what it is these days, our ability to sort of remotely push eSIMs out to devices, we could potentially onboard BYOD users with a secondary Teams Phone Mobile line very quickly and easily. So again, some real agility there in terms of how we can deploy and who we can deploy to.
So it's eSIM and physical SIM potentially. There's no difference there?
No difference whatsoever. I would say, in all honesty, I think we will be seeing a significant shift to eSIM. It's already kind of kicked off.
It feels like the industry's going that way, doesn't it? And some of the phone manufacturers are, I think, Apple leading the forced charge there of we're just going to go eSIM at some point.
Very much so. And, a lot of the conversations that we're having now are eSIM centric. It's key to, for example, migrations. It just makes life an awful lot easier. And if we think about a kind of an onboarding scenario, so let's say this is a corporate owned device now, we're at a point where we can just post that device straight out to an end user. They can unbox that device, they simply enter their work credentials, and then suddenly the network pulls down their eSIM. We can remotely activate Teams Phone Mobile on that. The MDM then pulls down all the policies and apps that they need, and that user is fully up and running in minutes without actually any involvement from IT. It's quite compelling stuff.
Awesome. I'm going to put you on the spot on how it works, kind of contract and commercials. Obviously, only share what you can share, but is this one seat, tens of seats, thousands of seats? How does it work? What kind of contracts and models does it fall into?
Well, we're incredibly flexible. If you would like 2 users or 20,000 users, we'll accommodate that for you. Obviously, the commercials may change slightly depending on the scale of the deployment. But yeah, so from our side, we basically have what we would call an enabler. We're cautious not to call it a license because there is a whole licensing side on Microsoft that customers do obviously need to be aware of.
Yeah, and let's just touch on that really briefly for the community. So on the Microsoft side, you'll need the Teams Phone license. Strangely, you need to add a zero cost license to activate, but it is a zero cost license.
No, you don't anymore.
Oh, have they got rid of that?
Well, yeah, so certainly if it's not already done, it will be in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. There you go. Breaking news.
Thanks, legacy, no worries. But yeah, that legacy SKU, which existed for, I guess, Microsoft reasons, they've managed to incorporate into the phone system license. So it just simplifies things from that side.
So if you're an enterprise and you've got E5, for an example, that includes Teams Phone. On the Microsoft side of the fence, there's no additional cost there. Sorry, I jumped into you there. So you were talking about the BT side.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. But you're absolutely right. So as long as the customer has a phone system in whichever format that takes from a licensing perspective from Microsoft, on our side, we simply apply what we call the Teams Phone Mobile enabler. That does carry a per month cost, but that allows you to then, what that does is it publishes the mobile number into your Teams admin center.
Yeah.
You can then allocate that number to a user, and off you go. So,
and that, at that point,
it's so easy to.
I've done the provision, and like you say, it's really a couple of clicks. It's quite an impressive experience, even more so if you're using eSIM and you're kind of doing that drop ship model. It's really cool.
Yeah. And I think we do need to touch on what I would call more traditional Teams voice services, and sometimes those deployments can be a lot more complex.
Yeah.
So I think for anybody might sort of be carrying a few battle scars from something like that, this will be a breath of fresh air. Absolutely.
Yeah, very much like Operator Connect. If you've done that, it's like a remote provision. It's all cloud to cloud. There's no SBCs. There's no IP addresses. There's no kind of classic IT fun. There's obviously the commercials and contractuals to get through, but from a technical point of view, very, very easy. And then, Rob, what happens? So I'm a Teams Phone mobile user with BT. My inbound and outbound, Teams calls, fixed line, whatever you want to call it, like soft phone, those are minutes in and out of BT now. So they're part of my mobile minutes, either provision or cost. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Although that said, obviously, those Teams to Teams calls still exist within the organization.
Yeah, stay on net, quote unquote.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're on Wi-Fi, for example, then you're not consuming mobile minutes. But I think, where historically mobile was seen as a very expensive way of sort of communicating with the outside world, it's less so these days. I think, the cost of mobile calling, mobile minutes is so much more competitive.
Yeah. And again, depending on what contract you've agreed, you might have bundles or options there, like different from different carriers. But also, I mean, I look at the stats for some of the enterprises I work with, like honestly, realistically, the use of fixed line is down and mobile remains pretty consistent. So people are reaching for their mobile anyway. So you're probably not upping a spend there realistically, I think.
No, and I think it's quite early to see a bigger picture here. I personally think it's going to be very subjective in terms of whether or not you'll realize any cost savings from this. But I think or rather some, obvious cost savings in terms of those bills. But what you will realize is more productivity and more availability of your people. So I think those cost savings may realize in other ways.
Yeah, obviously. So there's an potentially additive cost on the BT side, but you're losing some cost in the buying a classic SIP channel or SIP trunk, or so that might be a wash or thereabouts. But like you say, you the productivity benefit of the user now being able to work from anywhere, go anywhere, drop into an area where there's low data and still have a cellular call and have a single experience, jump in and out of the office. All those things we talked about are nice benefits, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from an end user perspective, it's really going to sort of change little things that add up to bigger things. These little sort of inconveniences that are faced all day, every day, suddenly will disappear. And I think, like I say, that I think perhaps Teams for Mobile is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm bullish on some timeline, and honestly, it's gone slower than I thought it would, and I think that's just because of the speed of operators, with all due respect, and the speed of the market. Telephony market just moves slow, but I think at some point it'll be you buy your business mobile. Obviously, Cisco have a similar type of offer. I'm sure the other UCASs will come up with something similar. You'll be like, obviously, when I buy a business mobile, I can pair it up with my favourite UCAS.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Robert, talk us through, like, what are you seeing today in terms of use cases, and where's it gone well, where's it fitting, what type of user?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think there's some real obvious use cases for Teams for Mobile. We have field workers, we have mobile-centric workers, so maybe a sales force or an engineering team, people that are out and about all the time. But that's not where, what we're seeing isn't limited to those use cases. So we're seeing people that are more interested in the compliance nature of the offering. So actually having that call recording follow the user
right around. So straight to kind of the FinServ, the legals, the people that, because mobile compliance recording has traditionally been a bit of a pain, and it's usually a separate system and usually not cheap either. So
quite so I guess you could argue that there might be some cost savings there, but actually from a compliance point of view, it really just simplifies everything, brings it together. We see people that are keen to integrate CRM like Dynamics, for example, and actually then that opens up a whole another
Oh yeah,
set
because
of use
all the
cases.
calls are coming into the call records for Teams, so you've got the records in one place. That's
Yeah,
a really good use case.
that's right. So yeah, it's broad and it's getting broader. I mean, some people at the very heart of it simply want all their users to migrate to this. We're going mobile first everywhere.
Yeah.
It's all users in one place, one consistent set of policies, and everybody's able to sort of take advantage of those benefits. For others, it's very much more part of a wider voice strategy. So, they may already have that direct routing or OC, and for static members of the organization, that's absolutely the most appropriate solution. But where there are other use cases, where there are more mobile-centric workers, Teams Phone Mobile slots in and takes over for that sort of population. So, yeah, it's an evolving piece, and I hate to give ambiguous answers, but
we had this conversation offline, didn't we? About there are more fits than I initially came up with. To be fair, in terms of that CRM one's really interesting. I think you touched on a key point as well, that it's not everybody. So I don't have to, like, there's multiple carriers, like everything in the Teams world. I could pick a subset of users and activate them for Teams Home Mobile, and I could have classic SIP trunks with BT or anybody else for those other users, and it's not an all or nothing.
Absolutely not. And yeah, you can be very flexible in your approach, and just make sure that the right users have got the right sort of Teams voice solution for them, really.
Amazing. So, Rob, if people want to find out more, this is GA and available in the UK with BT and around the world with other operators. From a BT perspective, how do people find out more, engage with you and your team?
Reach out to your BT account team. The account teams are all well aware of the service, and they will put you in touch with the right people in our organisation. It may even be that you end up speaking to me. We'd welcome the opportunity to explore areas that Teams Phone Mobile can offer benefits.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everybody, for listening in. And this has been a very good deep dive, I think, on Teams Phone Mobile. If you've got questions or comments or thoughts or feedback on Teams Phone Mobile, we'd love to hear them as well. I'll probably pass them on to Rob if they're too tricky, but if that's okay. Thanks for coming on the show, Rob. It's been a really good one.
Thank you for having me. Cheers, Tom.